They watching.
You know, after World War II, humanity stood at a crossroads. It was a simple choice, really. Rebuild together or find new ways to tear each other apart. And in a really strange, really dangerous paradox, it actually chose to do both. Just listen to these words from Winston Churchill back in 1946. He called Europe a rubble heap, a charnel house. I mean, just imagine that. A continent in total ruins, millions upon millions dead, entire cities just gone. This place that was supposed to be the cradle of civilization was now, as he said, just a breeding ground for despair. And you can feel the shock in those words, right? That right there, that's the heart of the paradox we're diving into. Because in the exact same breath that the world was vowing never again, it started building the very tools for its own complete annihilation. So how? Okay, so to really get a grip on this paradox, we have to start with the dream. We have to look at this incredibly ambitious plan, this blueprint for peace that was designed to make another world war literally impossible. And right at the center of that blueprint was the United Nations, founded in 1945. Think about this. 51 countries came together with this massive vision. It was about getting rid of the reasons we fight in the first place. Protecting human rights, getting aid to those who need it, and making sure everyone plays by the same set of international rules.
And they got to work fast. Just 3 years later, in 1948, the UN comes out with this landmark document. For the very first time in history, you had all these nations agreeing on what fundamental rights and freedoms mean, not just for their own people, but for every single person on the planet. I mean, that's a huge deal. It was this radical, powerful promise of dignity for everyone.
But this push for peace wasn't just happening on a global scale. It was also happening regionally, in Europe. Check this out. The French Foreign Minister, Robert Schuman, had this absolutely brilliant idea. He looked at coal and steel, the very building blocks of tanks and guns, the lifeblood of war, and he asked, what if we took those materials and basically locked the economies of old enemies, like France and Germany, together? If your economies are tied up like that, war becomes, as he put it, not just unthinkable, but materially impossible.
You see the picture, right? There's this incredible, powerful momentum building towards unity and peace. But, and this is the big but, at the very same moment, a massive crack was starting to form right down the middle of the world's foundation. A crack that would split everything in two. And what was causing that crack? Two completely opposite ways of seeing the world. On one side, you've got the USA with its capitalist system. Think free markets, private property, democracy, and individual freedom. On the other side, the USSR and communism, where the state owns everything, the economy is planned from the top down, and the group comes before the individual. And you have to understand, these weren't just like different economic policies. They were totally conflicting visions for the entire future of humanity. And each side genuinely believed the other was a threat to its very existence. And Churchill, he had a knack for words. In that same year, 1946, he gave this division a powerful name. He said an iron curtain had descended across Europe. Now, there wasn't a real physical wall. Not yet, anyway. But this barrier was just as real. It was a political wall, an ideological wall, slicing the continent in half and creating these two totally separate hostile zones.
And the Soviet reaction, it was immediate, and it was furious. Joseph Stalin goes on the record with the state newspaper and doesn't just push back, he goes on the attack. He calls Churchill a firebrand of war. He even compares him to Hitler. I mean, think about that. That's not a political disagreement. That's seeing the other side as pure evil. It just goes to show you how deep the distrust ran. They didn't see each other as rivals. They saw each other as monsters.
So this war of words very quickly turned into something much more solid. It hardened into actual alliances carved in stone. The U.S. kicked things off with the Marshall Plan, pouring money into Western Europe to rebuild and, to keep communism out. Then came NATO in '49. A full-blown military alliance. The message was clear. An attack on one is an attack on all. And of course, the Soviets had to respond. In 1955, they formed their own military bloc, the Warsaw Pact. And just like that, the lines were drawn. The world was officially split into two massive armed camps
staring each other down.
And this setup created a really weird kind of conflict. It wasn't a hot war, with American and Soviet soldiers shooting directly at each other. Thank goodness. Instead, it was what we call the Cold War. It was fought indirectly, with threats, with propaganda posters, and, tragically, through brutal proxy wars in other countries all over the globe.
But the absolute most terrifying part of all of this? The nuclear arms race. Take a look at this clock. It's called the Doomsday Clock. And in 1953, a group of atomic scientists set it to just 2 minutes to midnight. Why? Because both the US and the USSR had just tested the H-bomb, a weapon hundreds of times more powerful than what was dropped on Japan. Suddenly, global annihilation wasn't some sci-fi movie plot. It was a very real, very tangible fear that people lived with every single day.
And there were these incredibly tense moments that really tested everyone's nerves. The Berlin blockade is a perfect example. The Soviets decided to just cut off West Berlin, a little island of democracy deep inside communist territory. They blocked all the roads, all the railways. The goal was to starve the city into surrender. So what did the West do? They didn't send in tanks. They sent in planes. For almost a year, they flew in everything: food, fuel, medicine, supplying a city of 2 million people entirely from the air. It was this insane, high-stakes game of chicken that pushed the whole world right to the brink.
This whole conflict was also a massive propaganda war, a battle for hearts and minds. In the West, you'd see cartoons like this all the time. The message was simple, and it was hammered home again and again. This is a fight between freedom and tyranny. The Soviet Union was always this big, scary, aggressive bear just waiting to gobble up the rest of Europe.
But if you flipped the script and looked at it from the other side, the picture was the complete opposite. Soviet propaganda, like the poster you see here, showed America as the real bad guy, a two-faced warmonger talking about peace while holding a bomb behind its back. In their story, the US was the real empire, the true aggressor, just hiding its lust for power behind a lot of nice-sounding words.
I mean, this rivalry was so intense, it even reached for the stars. The battle went cosmic. When the Soviets launched Sputnik, the world's first satellite, it was a shock. Then they sent the first man, Yuri Gagarin, into space. Each one was hailed as this huge victory for the communist system. So of course the US had to respond. It poured unbelievable amounts of money and brainpower into its space program with one clear goal. And in 1969, they got there. The moon landing wasn't just a scientific achievement. It was broadcast to the entire planet as the ultimate proof that capitalism and the American way were superior.
Okay, so fast forward to 1991. The Soviet Union collapses, and the Cold War is officially over. But here's the thing. It never really went away. The structures that were built during that time, the alliances, the deep-seated mistrust, those things have long-lasting echoes that we can still hear and feel all around us today.
Think about it. The institutions created for peace, like the UN and the EU, they're still here. But so is NATO, the military alliance created specifically to fight the Soviets. And that old Cold War logic? It's all over today's news. The war in Ukraine? Well, from Russia's perspective, it's framed as a pushback against NATO getting too close. The tensions with Taiwan? That's a direct echo of the end of the Chinese Civil War, a conflict frozen in time by the Cold War. Even the war on terror brought up that same old thorny question. Can you, or should you, impose your way of thinking on another country?
And all of this, it leaves us with a really deep philosophical question that just won't go away. The end of the war gave us this beautiful idea of universal human values and this sense that we have a duty to act for the good of everyone. But it also showed us a very hard truth. That noble impulse can so easily twist into a bitter clash of ideologies. A world where one person's help is another person's control. And that is the paradox. That's the core tension that was born from the ashes of 1945. And honestly, it's a question we are all still trying to figure out.
Signal detected. Firewall breach. Begin transmission. They watching. They watching.